Okay, joining us right now from some location on this planet, Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing tonight? Oh no!
Night, but I'm doing good.
Uh-oh. Hang on.
Can you hear me?
Try that again. Busy night, you say?
Yep, busy.
Busy, but you're doing good.
Yeah, doing good.
All right. Well, Mike, I was just reflecting on the last 7 days. I call it the 7 days of doom. Not that it's total doom, but I mean, since you were on last Thursday night till now, look how many things have happened. The world has literally gone insane, Mike.
Yeah, it has. Start with that hurricane.
That hurricane was horrible, and as you can see, the devastation.
Did you it stuck to the East Coast? Remember I talked about those high pressure systems that would
Yes.
not let that storm go inward to when we have another one. We have another high, and it could because we have two other hurricanes that could form, and there's a chance this high pressure system may just obliterate that storm. It may just suck all the energy out of it. But either way, the damage was incredible. It went up the East Coast, Pastor Paul, and I don't believe they're reporting. They're not reporting everything. They can't do that. But it's some pretty bad damage.
Mike,
Bad damage
here's I'm getting emails. We know that right now the reports are at least about before I came on the air, 215 people are dead, but
there's a lot more.
There's a lot more because we're getting some feedback from people who are up in that area. Who, of course, they haven't had power for a week, but some of them are finally getting they're getting some satellite phones. We're getting some feedback that they're saying that there's bodies everywhere. That there could be 1,000 people dead. Is that possible?
I have two nieces in Asheville, right?
Okay.
And of course, Asheville has a history of flooding. In fact, in one of their municipal declarations, they have special coverage for floods, and they have instructions for floods, for after flood and before flood happenings. I tried to convince my two nieces to get out of there. It is a quaint little place, but it's the topology is all wrong, right? And but they got stuck there. Now Asheville right now is cut off in several different places. BlackRock lost huge investments in their Ishar operation because Black Mountain may not recover. It's going to take many years for that to recover from this storm. But the city was essentially cut off at 2 points. And the roads were impassable. The trees swept a lot of people away. A lot of people drowned. A lot of people drowned. There are folks who can smell dead bodies, that stench of dead bodies. They can smell that. But I don't think the news is covering everything right. That's just Asheville. The rest of North Carolina, going up near Charlotte, going up into the Virginias and West Virginia, of all places. Do you know they lost just about all power? All power was lost just about in West Virginia. And the governor of West Virginia did not declare a national emergency because he had no feedback. He had no feedback whatsoever. So the death toll is coming back now from West Virginia, North Carolina. And I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, I guess 40% of West Virginia has recovered power, but the grid is damaged. It's badly damaged. So they have 17 different states going in to help out. From West Virginia all the way down to North Carolina. The major death toll, the first, the obvious death toll came from Asheville.
Right? Yes.
There could literally be, just in Asheville alone, 800 people could be gone.
Whoa.
Just in Asheville. Yeah, just in Asheville. And supplies. Now, they're doing their best to get those supplies in there. They have a couple of target locations where they dropped off supplies. Several military craft dropped off a lot of supplies. The problem is you have a big group of people that can get supplies, but the larger group that live out in these remote places, you have to get those supplies by foot. You can't even there are no roads left to get to those people, and they're running out of time. Some people are still stuck in the mud, right? They can hear people screaming. They're trying to hunt for folks. It's just a absolute disaster, right? And one of the disheartening parts of me is when any city in the U.S. goes through something like that, when you do an immediate assessment, right, as far as the government's concerned. And I hate to be critical, but when you see, when it's obvious the city goes through something like that, you suspend all external operations, and you do what you can do for the people. That's what the federal government is for,
Right.
to assist in those areas where local governments can't do anything. They don't have the resources.
No.
So that's a lot of people personally, a lot of personal people with their. There were some people that went up with their own helicopters that went to help people out. I had eyes on that situation. It's an incredible situation. It really is. Terrible, by way of being terrible.
Mike, now
terrible
I'm getting
situation.
reports also that people are being turned away now. I mean, what I mean by is help. Folks are driving in with pickup trucks and trailers with food and supplies and water and medical help, and they're being turned away.
You have two. There are two civilian companies, right? And they're ex firemen, ex military, ex pilots, and they're helping out everybody. But what was happening is people were trying to come in and help, and they themselves go missing, right? They were getting in trouble and going missing. And so they had, this company was working with the government there and told them, we can't allow these people in there because we can't account for them. People are going missing left and right. There's still some vulnerable spots in there where people are being lost. So it's a bad situation, and it requires lots of oversight, and there are a few private companies in there that help in natural disasters that are doing their best. But the problem again is there are areas there, if you get a vehicle in certain areas, the floodwaters are still up. You could, that person can be lost.
Right.
And so, that would be bad. So it's essentially, it's four quadrants, and that's it's cut off in four quadrants, right? I spent I'd say about 4 hours there, maybe about 4 hours there. And it's just not a good situation.
So you've spent about 4 hours there since this catastrophe.
Yeah.
So are you involved? So I take it you're probably part of the total assessment of the situation. Am I correct?
Well, I went there to get some eyes on, and I'll subjected some opinions and guidance. But Press Ball is one of those situations where they're going to need a little more than the average group to come in and do anything, because you have people who have zero supplies. You have communities that are being looked over. Nobody's gotten to them. There are actual grid spots on the map where nobody's gotten to that
been there
area
yet. They're still on their own. They're still on their own.
Right. And that's a problem. When you're in a disaster, time is everything. You can't leave people there in that type of disaster for any amount of time. So, but it was hard to tell who was in charge. It was hard to tell who was doing what. There was a loss of communication as far as supplies were concerned. They had the supplies on the ground that were still on the pallets, going nowhere. That's a no-go, right? They did have it was a long line of people. People waited 3, 4, 5 hours just to get water, oxygen, food, things of that nature. But those were the lucky ones. There are people in other regions that nothing has gotten there yet, right? Because they didn't figure out, all they had to do was an airdrop in those places. That's all they had to do. So it's our emergency response in this country, you'd think we'd have it down pat by now. We do not. We don't. It simply isn't. I mean, they talk good, yeah, but in every single disaster, there's always a group of people left out.
Is that because, and I mean, I don't want to start naming names, but is that because we put unqualified people at the top of some of these agencies?
For some reason in FEMA, save for 2 people I ever knew of, their response has been slow because of paperwork. You got to remember, the government can't just do something by sight. You have to have proper authorization. That is a problem, right? If you see somebody in trouble, you got to go back and fill out some paperwork to go get the person, right? Or you can't fuel up a chopper and take it anywhere. You have to have authorization and clearance to do that. That's where the problem is. It is not a fast reaction response, right? So all this, the talk, we're going to deploy troops out there, this, that, and the other, that's fine. But getting authorization, allocation, and finding out what agency is going to pay for this and do this, that's the problem. It's not. It should be straightforward for disaster response for the states. In fact, they should take care of the paperwork after they save the lives. How about that?
Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah.
After, right? Because they have military operations like that where you take care of the red tape after you go in and do what you have to do. But wouldn't the lives of Americans be priority over everything? I mean, everything. If one city suffers, I believe, it's just my belief, if one city suffers, the federal government, if it's that big and they have to assist, they should suspend everything to go and check that situation out and do something about it that day. I mean, because time is everything.
Okay, let's talk about this. From the military standpoint, you have what's called the rules of engagement. Pre-orders are already done. In case of this situation, you do this. You don't have to go back and fill out a form or ask anybody. Rules of engagement, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
The same thing. The same mentality should be involved in a FEMA response or anyone else. There should be immediate what's called rules of engagement. If a storm hits, power goes out, instantly the orders are already done. You already know who goes, who's bringing what, where we got to go. I don't think that mentality is in position in some of these government agencies. Could I be wrong on that, Mike?
Well, no, you're right. And the only people that do have standing orders would be Coast Guard, right? Certain National Guard elements, but they're it takes time to call back those National Guard elements, right? Because that's, those people who serve 50% of it or a quarter percent of the time, and they're out doing their own life, the other percent. So you have to call those people back. The Coast Guard, they simply don't have enough. They don't have enough.
I understand.
And so, but I'll tell you something. If a national riot took place, Northcom has instant authorization to lock down this country.
Okay.
How about that?
In other words,
they have authorization right now to diffuse things, but they don't have authorization to save a life. That's a big problem.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, and this is the thing that I think a lot of Americans are picking up on, is the rules of engagement is involved if it comes to preserving the power of the ruling class. There's rules of engagement for protecting the power of the guys in power, okay? But when it comes to protecting the devastation from these situations, there is no rules of engagement. It just, we'll do the best we can kind of thing. And if we get there, we'll get there when we get there. I mean, that we got to change that mentality. I think
we do.
Don't you
think? The same thing with technology. Do you know when Asheville, when it first happened, do you know what the governor and everybody else said? Oh, it's not too bad.
Oh my God.
They had no idea how bad that situation was. They had no idea. People were they were doing the social media live. When the cell phones went down, all communication was lost. Nobody knew about anything, but the people saw these live Facebook feeds, and they were calling everybody. If not for Facebook this time, right? Yep. Nobody would have known the extent of the damage. That's a fact.
Social media,
because they had people combing social media, and the folks who saw these people started calling agencies, right? And they made them pay attention. That's horrible. It has to be there. We can see a gnat's butt from up in the atmosphere, but we can't tell the city. People are in distress in the water. One lady was in the water for 5 hours. In flood water for 5 hours, and she began to pray, and she said, the Lord said to let loose of the tree. I'm in the water. I'm going to carry you to safety. And so she was stuck in the roots in the tree. She let loose, and she finally ended up in a very safe place. She was rescued, but others weren't so fortunate. They were washed away with the water.
Do you know what?
I'll tell you something. Those people pray down there a lot. I'll tell you that much.
Amen. Well, that's God's country down there. Okay, that's God. Yeah. That's the Bible Belt. That's Billy Graham country. Here's a question: you have to know the American people how they feel. They've watched 10 million illegals come across the border. They've seen them be put in hotels all across America, given debit cards, free access to health care, and everything else.
Good,
And then, but when they're in a disaster, nobody can get to nobody.
Right. Right.
It's not feeling. That don't feel good. Does that feel good to you, Mike?
Well, Pastor, if I'm a Christian now, so I don't go there anymore. But I'll tell you something: when you are young and you're trying to establish yourself in this country, right, this great country, and then you find out that a foreigner can come in and get paid to start a business, and get and have free room and board, and they don't have to pay taxes, and they get grants for everything they have in that store. That's disheartening. A kid coming out of college trying to get established, they come out with debt. But you find out that all foreigners, they're getting grants to come to this country to set up businesses,
free education.
And they're finding them houses, nice houses.
Yeah.
They automatically have cars, trucks, everything they need. But an American who's born in this country, who gets educated in this country, you can't do that. You cannot go out and get a grant for a business. They're going to put you through so many ringers. It's not funny. And then somehow they're going to find a way to say, well, you don't have enough experience. You're not qualified. You have to do this first. But a foreigner, they will contact them overseas and say, hey, come here, set up your shop here. The whole thing is indifferent.
Well, so the question is, why is that going on? I mean, what's the plan here? Is there a plan to, is this a hijacking of America?
It's been taking place for a long time, right?
Yeah, it has.
And listen, Satan is methodical. Satan has been around for a long time. He didn't start his plan yesterday. This guy's been working since before the USA was thought of.
Yeah.
So you better believe he's doing things. And the sad part about it is, do people really not know this, right? I mean, if anybody would give a protest, would it be for some of these fundamental things that put power back into the hands of the Americans?
Yes.
If the Americans don't have power, they can protest all day, and the government still says no. They can protest all day and nothing changes.
Well, we found that out. They
can protest all day, but let the foreigners come over here. And they say, oh, everybody stop. National Guard comes out, protects them, and they send the Americans home and start appeasing, throwing out the 10 Commandments because we have foreigners here that are Islamic, throwing out the pictures of Jesus Christ in the schools because it offends the foreigners. Now, if you come to this country, you assimilate or go back home.
Thank you.
That means you adopt what's here. You don't change what's here. You adopt what's here.
Amen.
And because that did not take place, this is a melting pot by way of biology, not ideology. Sorry, it didn't work that way. And so now look where we are. And people are finally waking up to identify. And you know what they say when they wake up? We've lost our country.
Yep.
That's what they say. But it's I'll tell you something. It's sad, yes, but now that their eyes are opening, they can see it. They have a responsibility to carry the ideology of this nation every day with them everywhere they go, with everything they do.
I don't want to go political here, but and I'm not trying not to, because you and I, we're very good at not going political. But we have to ask a question here. J.D. Vance, this VP debate. I mean, he shocked everybody, I think. Not me, but he shocked a lot of people with his brilliance and his humbleness and his candidness and his respect. And Waltz was dancing the waltz, tripping over his feet, but he was still waltzing. What is your thought? Do you think that moved the needle in one way or the other, or doesn't matter?
I think with the vice presidential debates, they don't get the viewing that the presidential debates get, right? But I thought they were, honestly, I thought they were both. Both of them, they had a pretty decent conversation.
Yes, they did.
Waltz did stumble when he was asked about the China question. They both admitted to something, but J.D. Vance did something that was extraordinary. And it was very good because they asked J.D. Vance, they said, why were you against Trump and said this about his policies, this, that, and the other? And his answer was quite sincere. He said, well, that's what I thought at first, listening to media, following the paperwork, this, that, and the other, until I saw it for myself, and I saw how the American people, their needs were starting to be met, and that they really needed the policies of Donald Trump at that time. That's why I changed my mind. And when he said that, because it was so forthcoming and honest,
it was honest.
that when I couldn't help but to think, well, these two guys are more presidential than, I mean, honestly, he was more presidential than
I
any
agree.
president.
They both
He
were more
was.
presidential than the
That's
presidents.
right.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
right.
I agree.
Because they were about the American, America's business, right? Not about these personal things, but America's business. And I strongly believe that's what people are looking for. Do you know how many people went? They didn't tell this, but not too many people watched the vice presidential debates, right?
43 million. Of
The
43
numbers
million.
the numbers that went back to watch them are off the
Off
chain.
the charts.
I mean, listen, you're talking about billions of people went
Yes.
back to watch it.
You're
So
exactly
the word
right.
got out, and they went back to watch these guys. They made a huge impact.
Yes.
But I was quite impressed. It really instilled in me there's hope. There's real
It
hope
is.
because these guys care about this country. They had
Okay.
deep convictions. One did look kind of like Burl Ives, but hey, we can get past that. But
Well, I think what we
they
saw,
cared
Mike,
about this country.
I think what
They
we
cared
saw
about this country.
Okay, first of all, there were 61 million people who watched the presidential debate between Trump and Harris. There were 43 million who watched the VP. Okay.
Right.
But like you said, way more than that have watched the archives of that debate. Way more.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and we know Trump is successful. We know his first term, he definitely was a successful president who put this country economically and peace through strength. And, I mean, I know he's a bull in a china shop, but he knew what needed to be done. Vance has proven that if Trump something gets sick or he dies or something, you're not worried about Vance taking president. You're not worried about him taking over.
Right.
Waltz was
He
more
would do an excellent
professional.
job.
Waltz to me was way more professional than Harris and way more smarter than Harris, but he's still got a liberal ideology at the end of the day.
He did. He does. He does. Because his support, I did notice what Waltz was doing was defending Kamala.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And J.D. Vance was introducing himself, and he didn't so much as defend Trump as tell everybody, hey,
just be
I
honest.
I agree with his policies. His policies were helping out America. And I hate to tell everybody, Democrat or Republican, when you look at leaders, there are certain times when you need certain types of leaders. One leader for all time does not work.
No,
right?
You got to have a difference.
That's right. And right now we are in a position we really need somebody who can play hardball with everybody in the world.
Well, that's Trump.
Right? We
Trump.
don't need anybody who's going to talk somebody to death because there are 28 nations who hate Israel. 28.
Wow. Is
and
it
if anybody can open,
wait. Only 28, Mike?
These are people who put it on paper.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay.
And this is known. They will not recognize Israel. They will not.
Wow.
Right? Now, out of all the UN nations, every single last one of them has a problem with Israel, except the USA, depending on what, who's in charge.
Amen.
But Israel is in a very.
Let's go there.
I'll tell you what. Right now, we're in a tinderbox. Right now,
let's go there,
optics. Mike. Well, Pastor. I have a view on the Middle East.
Okay.
That is. That's probably not like anybody else's.
But can I ask you a question before you go into your view? I'm going to let you go into your view. Did Israel? We know that Israel has wiped out Hezbollah, basically the leadership. And did they? And they're moving in with their ground game slowly. Did they, when they blew up this depot in the Russian air base in Syria, how's that going? Can you talk about that with your whole view? I'll step back. Your view.
First of all, Hezbollah had operational control. They were fighting from that base. Okay, now they were told to stay out of the places you don't want blown up. Israel told them if they're going to blow up a place, they're going to blow up every single spot where Hezbollah is firing at Israel. And so they marked that target, and kapoof, that wasn't a mistake. Hezbollah was there, right? Others were there also.
Yep.
And Israel, by way of their intelligence, they know the true story of what's happening, because Hezbollah is not one nation. Hezbollah is more like 58 different nations. 58 different nations fighting against Israel. And so the story, the optics of what's happening, it looks one way. but it's in fact a different way. But it's also very dangerous, right? For example, Israel has no choice they have to defend
Of
themselves.
course. Amen.
They have to knock out the threats around them.
Amen.
But so let me give you this. Give everybody this cautional view. I see. Everybody already knows how if Israel overreaches in the eyes of the Middle East just an inch, they turn on Israel like a rabid dog. Everybody knows that.
You're right.
Right?
Yes.
There's about to be a joint operation against Iran. Right?
Okay.
It's going to be a joint operation because somebody's going to have to monitor how much is going to be dished out. Let's put it that way. Right? But when Israel strikes Iran, and they will, when they get back at Iran, we already know. I can tell you what's going to happen. The entire world is going to perceive it as overreach. Period. Why do I say this? Because Israel has outgunned Iran. Iran launched many missiles at Israel, and the USA and Israel just about got all of them.
Yes.
So it was nobody died from that.
Yes.
So now in the world's eye, they're saying, okay, Iran is minimal in regards to Israel. But when Israel strikes back, they're going to say, wait a minute, you guys were in a position as you were much tougher than they are, and you knew that. And you just killed, they're not going to say soldiers, they're going to say civilians. It doesn't matter what they hit. And that's why the USA is trying to pick out certain targets where they cannot say you hit a bunch of civilians. But it doesn't matter what they hit. I'm telling you right now, the moment they hit Iran, the call is going to come out. They're going to say Israel did a strong overreach. The sentiment from the whole world will be against Israel. Right? This is going to be a mandate for their disarmament. That will be by force. And so you're going to see, and during that time, Iran is quite dangerous. I'm telling you, they're dangerous. The missiles they launched was from
weak stuff, right?
Excess. That's right. It was little tiny, stupid things they were launching. Those ballistic missiles were by no means what they actually have. Iran has a capability of launching up to 10,000 missiles per wave.
That would be
They're
insane.
not going to block 10,000 missiles.
No, you can't.
And of those 10,000 missiles, they already have a high inventory from Russia, right? And from North Korea, that they can launch missiles that are near hypersonic. You can't, Iron Dome does not have the capability to intercept all those, right? They also have chemical warheads. So when that happens, they know that can happen. They're going to be overwhelmed.
Chemical warheads.
Which is why, they have chemical warheads on some of those ballistic
what kind of chemicals are we talking about, Mike?
The bad stuff, dusty mustard, HG nerve agent, you name it, they have it. And so if they start launching like that, that's just not going to be good. Well, I can tell you right now, my anchor is prophecy. I already know that the beast will come forward. Yes. The abomination of desolation. That 3.5 years occupation is going to be there.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, and that's going to be right there in Jerusalem. So that means an armed coalition, multiple armies are going to go and take Israel. We already know it's going to be carnage. It's going to be exile and everything else.
Half the city will go under.
That's right. And if Benjamin Netanyahu, right, and he's doing what he has to do for his nation.
Right.
It's just one of those moments. I just know what the world's going to do in return. They're going to overreach, hit Iran, and that could hasten this entire event, right? Because if he does that to Iran, I'm telling you right now, Russia has no choice but to react. Russia is dependent on Iran. Russia is. Iran has trillions of dollars, right, from their oil and deals with science, oil, and petroleum, and trillions of dollars. A bad story will come out with BP in Iran, some things that the world didn't quite know about. So they are
BP,
Iran is like
are you talking about BP,
underground bank.
BP oil?
BP oil.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like they're like an underground bank. That's why somebody has to just realize, why has no one gone in and really hush these guys up because they can't.
Okay, so
they
let's
can't
go.
do that.
So you're saying the reason Iran, when they fired 181 ballistic missiles, that was their weak stuff. Because if they had come back and really hit Israel with 5,000 intercontinental
It would have been
ballistic,
bad.
and then they would be the bad guys. All right.
That's right.
So
That's right.
they fire what they had to do. They kick back and wait. Israel's going to smack them. We know Israel's going to hit them. And I think it's October 7th, but I don't know. Let's say, and Israel hits them, and no matter what Israel hits them with, they're going to get blamed for being too aggressive, too strong, too this and that. And the world will start to surround Iran against Israel again, right?
Yep.
And Iran will be setting back. You're saying they're sandbagging. They have actually better capabilities.
Yes,
and then
they do.
now they'll have the blessing of the world to throw some of that at Israel.
Yes, they're very good at crying wolf. They're very good at crying mercy.
I got you.
Because they did say they wrote a statement saying Israel ought to exercise mercy. How do you say that after you just hit them with a bunch of missiles?
Because they're Iran and the Ayatollah. Can I ask you? Do you think they're going to try? Do you think Israel's going to try to assassinate or destroy the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Do you believe
if they wanted to? If they wanted to, they
dead?
could right now. Right now, this moment, they could do it. They don't have to try. If they wanted to, they could do it right now. Israel has a capability.
So they're waiting. They're waiting for the right moment. They're waiting for the right moment.
Plus, you have wild cards. You also have Bahrain. You also have Jordan and Saudi Arabia, right?
Okay.
Who Saudi Arabia is in the middle. They're in an area that could easily get wiped out with a confrontation between Israel and Iran. They're in a very vulnerable, that's known as a, not fallout as in radioactive fallout, but fallout as far as, imbalanced projectiles, things of that nature always go right in Saudi Arabia. And they're in a very vulnerable position. So they're having talks with Iran. But I'll tell you something, the USA and Israel are coordinating. They will have some sort of coordinated attack, but I suspect Israel is going to act quickly. Right? When they make preparations, they don't stall between their preparations.
So today's the 3rd, and so we all know October 7th is a big day, and I'm hearing that there's chatter out there. We're getting information from some folks that are on the on some of the agencies. I know you got great intel, so you could confirm or deny that October 7th, there is several different scenarios of attacks on Jews, whether it be in Israel or around the world. Do you sense that for October 7th, the 1-year anniversary?
I'll tell you what, Paul, there have been some communications intercepts, and of course there's you have the Mossad, who reports pretty accurate information because they're embedded in the lives of terrorists and everything else. But they want to hit America pretty hard.
That's what I thought. Jews in America.
When I say hit us hard, they want to hit us hard. They want to hit us
9/11 hard.
And so 9/11 can't compare to what they want to do. They're going for broke.
Can they do it?
Time.
Do they have the capability?
Yes, they can. Unfortunately, they can.
Do we have the defense to stop it?
Well, here's the problem. The problem is you have too many folks in America who are turning out to be loyal to Middle Eastern causes, right? Like that school teacher they apprehended yesterday who's been teaching for 35 years. And they just so happened to, one of the kids saw something on a cell phone. The kid reported that. And I guess they checked it out somehow. They had to go nab the guy because he was, this guy was in the middle of planning. You're talking about a trusted school teacher, right? That was doing this. And so what you have are people over here in America who look like Americans. They talk like Americans, but they're not American at heart. They have for some reason, they're forming sympathies towards the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
And you have a lot of people who are desperate here in this country also because drugs are a problem, period. Now, this is an angle most people don't think about. You have a lot of folks on methamphetamines. Yes. You just do. You have a lot of people on cocaine. These individuals would do anything for money. They would.
Wow.
Iran knows exactly who they are, right?
Wow.
So These people have been nabbing children, nabbing women, right? They're right here in this country. They've been nabbing them. Some of these people are also pretty smart, but they're on methamphetamines. So they need that constant supply of money. If they get money from a foreign entity via, back channels or cryptocurrency, anything, they will do what's necessary to get that money. And so when you're Iran and you're offering Americans $11 million for two children, or $11 million for this, and this is the money that's floating around, there's a problem. And when you have the dark web, that a lot of people don't even know how to get on the dark web. It's not something anybody should ever do. Nobody should ever do that.
No, I don't even know, and I don't want to know.
Yeah, don't do that. But when you have half of America's people are compromised by way of the dark web, I'll say more than half, but probably about 3/4 of the people in America are on your social security numbers, date of birth, all that's on the dark web. You have identity compromises. And so you have these folks who act like there's someone else doing these dirty crimes, and it causes confusion within this country, right? You're going to have a problem. It's a known fact that there's a lot of compromised methamphetamine addicted individuals in America who will carry out Iranian actions right here in the USA.
Wow. So they get money
and
for
they are
drugs.
specifically, that's right, they're specifically targeting Caucasians, because in truth, nobody's going to look at a Caucasian and say, you're a Middle Eastern sympathist. They're not going to do that, right? And so they profile people like that who are addicted to drugs, and they recruit them. And I'm telling you, it's a huge problem. When you start paying people money, they don't care. They don't care. They want that money so they can get their stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're facing that element also. Now they have plans here for this country. And unfortunately, they've been planning for a couple of years now. Think about that. So you mean to tell me they're just now starting to publicize this? They should have publicized the problem of domestic terrorism a couple of years ago pretty strong. And
Exactly.
say, hey, look, we have foreign elements who are recruiting people in the USA to do some terrible things. You guys have to watch out for this. But because the political atmosphere was so dynamic and violent, and somewhat violent, and because all the controversy with
there's
President Trump and all this stuff,
violent.
Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to say anything that would inflame the blame. Right. So now we're in a bad jam.
Well, you say, yeah, you're right. Somewhat violent. A bullet hits the president in the ear. Another guy's hanging out for 12 hours with a rifle, with a scope. And who knows how many other potential assassins are waiting. You're right. This thing is getting very violent. And, we're 34 days away. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I pray every day that we make it to the election day with two candidates that are still alive. I'm serious about that, Mike. I never thought I would have to pray like that. I don't want either one. But I'm saying this is a dangerous situation, aren't we in?
It is. And the media, now's the time for the media to be very responsible. In fact, my advice to people is search out your Christian media sources. I'll tell you why. Because they're not, they're just, these guys are bloodthirsty. Yep. They're ambulance chasers. All they do is inflame situations.
Amen.
And in fact, they're the reason so many people are upset. It's them. It's them.
Yep. The mainstream media. Mainstream media.
Them.
Yep.
They're out for blood. They got mad at J.D. Vance because he didn't, throw Kamala Harris under the bus.
Well, he was being a class.
Right.
Yeah.
But Fox got mad at him for not doing that. And then CNN got mad at Waltz because they didn't bring up the January 6th thing and throw, everybody else under the bus. They were out for blood. Yeah. And they have to realize something, though. This country is not going to go forward like we are, right? Nope. So I have an actual prediction.
Okay, let's hear it.
I have an actual. Now, today is October 3rd.
Right. We're in Rosh Hashanah. We're in the Feast of Trumpets.
I'm sure everybody knows about they knew about the X-Class 7.1 that had all those little M-Class flares that led up to this X-Class 9.0.
Yep.
Right. Now that was in the direct strike zone, number one. There's a intensive magnetic field line forming right now. There's there's a potential that this thing could let off some bigger ones, right?
The
Now,
sun?
the
The
reason,
sun?
yes, the reason why this 9.0, it was incredibly strong, but here's what really got me was there's a when you're watching the sun, if you watch the 10.7 centimeter radial flux peak, right, because it has to peak, and that gives you a good indication that all the elements that are needed for flare have combined. And so what I'm sitting here watching is that 10.7 centimeter band recover itself so quickly. It's still going up. This burst didn't last that long. It wasn't stretched out. It was a very short, strong burst, right? Which is it's kind of rare to see a 9.0 do that, like a sharp burst, like
So
it was
you're
there and
saying
then
it didn't it wasn't real long. It was just a boom.
That's right. It was not as long as if you look at if you look at all the graph data, it was a strong peak and then it went down to nothing at all, right? Whenever you see that historically, when something lets off a peak like that, you know you have a potential still locked up in the sun. It's still quite active.
Okay.
And it's only a matter of time. This thing is still building.
Okay.
It's only a matter of time before one of those long durational X flares forms.
I see.
And that will be a big issue. So all those folks that watch the sun, I'm sure they're busy because they know there's a large intensive potential behind this one. You know, all those astronomical transients. Well, let me not nerd talk here, but all those elements that cause the sun to do this, they're actually in place, and we're right there. I mean, we're at the Earth. We're at the point. We're about to hit to a cluster of spots is about to point toward the Earth. I have a suspicion those things are going to let loose when they're Earth facing. I just have that suspicion. The timing is lining up and everything else. Not to mention the West Coast is shaking apart.
What? What do you mean the West Coast is shaking apart?
There's been a I guess you could say a pattern of tremors near some volcanoes, right? In Washington.
Washington State.
So if that continues, and we already have those volcanoes waking up, we're gonna have an eruption problem starting right there. If that goes, then all those volcanoes that were dormant that are starting to wake up, they're just going to start shifting and moving around, right? And I believe God gives warning. I do, because everything is foreshadowed. Every disaster is foreshadowed. And how many times does California have to go through these natural disasters like fire, right? Like they've been going through a lot of fire here lately, and mudslides, right? Now we have those volcanoes around or near and around Mount St. Helens start to have a little activity, and with these solar flares, they're just going to increase the chance of that happening, right? So we're going to have some geological issues, that we're really going to have to face. This storm, I hope it woke some people up. I hope it humbled some people, but most of all, I hope it shows that the USA is not ready to handle a disaster on a multi-state scale.
No, we're not.
We're just not ready. This storm just knocked out the power and dumped water everywhere, and we lost it. We've lost people. We're not prepared for it, right? We have bigger things coming.
Mike,
the sun is not going to be a joke this month.
Okay, so I'm writing that down. The joke, the sun's not going to be a joke.
No, it isn't.
Now, Mike, also, we picked up a second moon, and you said, I remember you saying, hey, that's just a sign of what else is coming.
Yeah, it's an indicator.
Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, because people are worried about that.
Think about something. The first of all, who knew about this as far as civilians are? Who knew about this, 4, 5, 6 months before it happened?
You. I didn't know.
But nobody else. My point was they don't give the civilians didn't know.
No, they did
not.
Now,
you have to know a little bit to say something is going to orbit around the Earth. You have to know some.
Yeah,
you have to know some. You have to have some data to do that. You just can't look at something and say, "Oh, that one's going to orbit. We're going to, our gravity is going to capture that."
Some serious data to know that, right?
Right. So that means they knew trajectory, they knew positioning, they knew all this for quite some time until they, finally let it out. Hey, we're going to have this. So that means if they knew this was going to orbit, here's my question to everybody else: What in that same vicinity have they been watching that would alert them to this little thing? That's why I said it was an indicator. It's not traveling by itself. It's traveling almost on a conveyor. So there's some things behind it that are going to take the exact same track, the exact same direct. They're going to follow that exact same highway that this thing took, and they're headed to us. Right?
Okay, is this? Remember, you've said that 2025 is going to be. Is this coming year 2025 going to be the year that we're going to see more and more and more of these rocks? And
yeah, we will. We're going to see more than we want to see. And we're going to see more than we want to see, because now we're getting into a point. I tell you, Pastor Paul, people are going to get beyond the point of getting, beyond the point of finding things, saying, "Hey, that's interesting." They're going to be asking, "How do I survive this? How do I survive this?
How do I survive?"
That's what they'll be asking. Yeah, kind of like this storm. This storm caught everybody by surprise, and when it hit, it was too late. Right?
Yeah,
they're going to do the same thing with the celestial problems. They're going to say, "How do we survive this impact? How do we survive that impact?" Right? They're going to be saying that. And all the while, we're going to see the Middle East consumed. I mean, absolutely consumed.
In war.
Yes, there are bad plans on the table right now,
Mike,
that are just not going to work well.
Did Russia get smacked today a little bit? Are they going to react? Are they going to lay low? This was a Russian air base that had gotten, there was a plane from Iran that landed 1 hour before Israel went in and blew everything up over there on those weapon depots. Hey, we know Russia, and you've said it a million times. Russia and Iran are hooked. They're at the belt, at the hip. So is Russia going to just kind of back off and they kind of ignore this, or do you think
they're going to wait? They're going to wait for the retaliation of Israel first. They're going to wait. And that's why you see the USA, right? Now, they sent supplies to the Ukraine, right?
Who, the U.S.?
They approved supplies to the Ukraine.
Who?
$175 billion worth of supplies.
Who did that?
That was the USA.
But they didn't supply. But they didn't approve $175 billion for North Carolina.
No.
Okay.
No, they did. They immediately, I'll tell you why they did that so quickly. You ready?
Okay, I'm listening.
Because they know what they're about to do, and they need to have the Ukraine completely armed, ready to kind of put a chain around Russia's neck while they handle things in the Middle East. But I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work out that way. They're going to attempt to stall Putin, or to kind of chamber him where he cannot directly interfere with Middle Eastern operations.
Wow.
The USA is going to be involved. There's an operation coming up, and it will be it's supposed to be a swift operation, but we know how that goes.
An operation is coming.
It's going to cause some problems.
Is it U.S. led operation, or
U.S./Israel?
Okay,
this is a joint operation.
Will the world know? Will the world know this is U.S.?
Yes, yeah, they're going to know it, because Israel, in their retaliation, the U.S. there's a U.S. component to that.
So,
right?
Are you talking now? Now you're saying the Israeli retaliation on Iran is going to be basically U.S. Israel retaliation.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Does Biden know about that, or is it just the generals running that?
Yeah, no, he knows about it.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows about it. He's one that's he knows about it.
He's signing off on it. He's going to sign off.
I tell you what, it's something funny. Is that what we have to do to a president to get them to be presidential? Is to take away the microphone, take away the cameras and the optics and everything else, and then they become presidential? Because he's been doing things for America and Israel ever since they took the cameras and the microphone and everything else away.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about. He's not going to get to be president after January 20th of next year. So he's saying, okay.
No, he's done for.
He's saying, okay, what do you guys want to do? Long as you don't indict Hunter and the Biden family for the $20 million they've got. $20 million.
Forget that.
Okay. So what do you guys want me to do? I'll sign anything you want me to. Is that what's happening?
Well, he's. I guess the cameras corrupt people, Pastor Paul. I guess
it's a little more than cameras. It's a little more cameras.
He's not in high optics, right? So he's like throwing the back room again. He's just throwing the back room again.
Okay. It's a little more than the cameras. It's the fact that the Biden crime family will be allowed to keep the $20 million that they've been given, as long as he stepped out of the way and let Kamala get the and he signs everything that needs to be done. I'm just guessing.
I think they're so stubborn.
Okay.
That story is just beginning.
Okay. I'll wait.
I
Oh,
think
let me
that
ask you
story is
about
just
Jack.
beginning.
Can I hate to go there, but what about Jack Smith? I mean, what in the world is Jack Smith doing? And why are we bringing this stuff up again about Trump? I mean, come on.
I know, right?
The J6
Stone
thing.
steps won't go. Listen, the stone steps won't go away, will they? I'll tell you something.
No.
This one could be serious. And let me tell you why. They're not going to try him as the president.
No, they're
They're
going
not.
to try him as a private citizen,
As a
even though he
candidate.
was,
That's
even
right.
though he
That's
was
right.
the president.
I was looking at some of the laws, right? One of the laws stipulates that if you're acting in a capacity of the president, right,
Okay.
then your actions are presidential, thus you're the president. But if you're acting in a capacity as a candidate, you're under the stipulation of a civilian. I saw that. So, Pastor Paul, they're trying to put together anything they can to keep Trump out of the White House. Telling you now, these guys they're not going to stop. They're not going to give up. They're not going to fold. They're going to keep doing it. They're trying to try him as a civilian, right? So, by way of the law that's on the record right now, you can be a president, but if you are campaigning and you do something during that campaign, you can be tried as a candidate or a civilian. You can. That is law. And so that's what they're trying to do. Now, the judge, whoever they present this to, it's problematic. It's already problematic. It's gonna stir up some stuff. Right, it will. It's going to stir up some stuff, but they're going to go forward with it. And this is he's not the only one doing this, Pastor Paul. The only reason he came forward to do it again is because there are others out there that do not, just be blunt, they don't want Trump back in Washington. Period.
No,
they don't want him
that's
there,
true.
right?
I know that.
Which
yes.
is, they just don't want him there. And
Yeah.
so you're having this coalition of people starting to, they're coming forward. They're trying to maximize the impact in the people's eye, because when you're campaigning, people are looking at you, and if they start validating some of these charges, if they can convince people, yes, he was acting as a candidate, that's going to start changing people's opinion, because they really don't know the whole story. All people know is some of the excitement they hear on the news, and they act accordingly. Well, if they start hearing contradictions to those things, it's going to be an issue.
Well, they're going to hear it, because I read the 165-page redacted I read it this afternoon.
Yeah.
I was bored. I was pretty bored to read that, right? But I read it, and it was basically a lot of stuff was said, and but nobody was quoted. A lot of redacted people. So I don't know who said what. And so I'm wondering, okay, some of this might be, make sense, but some of it, I would really like know who said that.
Well, see, that there it is right there, because some of the evidence, some of what they're going to present, if a person, if they don't put a name to it right away, and I know they're going to say, did he say that?
Who said it? Right.
Without, they're going to say, what in the world? Because like one of the direct statements that was made, that insinuated, go and start this trouble here, sounded like a response from, they try to make it sound like a response directly from Trump.
Yeah.
But that's part of the problematic part. They're holding stuff back. Now we got to face it too. President Trump, he speaks his mind.
He did.
He does.
He said some stuff. There's no doubt he said some stuff.
I believe that's causing him problems, because just because but here's the other thing. You ready for this?
Yep.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
If they were smart. Now, they just said that President Trump speaks about policies he cannot implement, because he speaks all the time about things he never does. Now, see, they should keep that phrase and take it back to some of that evidence, and there you are, because he does speak, because it establishes that he speaks his mind in an unfiltered way.
That's true.
Thus, his speech, when a person is like that, by law, you cannot connect speech to the actions of a person if they show a pattern of always speaking and not acting. You cannot by law connect the two.
I see. I
right?
see. I
So if
see.
they were smart, they would, instead of being offended by some of these insinuations, they would keep it and utilize it. But I tell you what, if people would not be offended, my goodness, everything would turn around. But
Amen.
offense can make you, see things in a very strange way. But
Amen.
there you are.
All right, Mike. Now
That's my 2 cents.
These 7 days have been. I called it the 7 days of doom because we had so much stuff that happened in these last 7 days. I'd never seen 7 days like this. A 6.8 earthquake in Tonga. Maybe the earthquakes, maybe the solar flares had something to do with that. We had the Ring of Fire. Nobody talks about. A guy was standing in Easter Island and saw the Ring of Fire. Then as the sun was coming up, he saw Comet Atlas with his own eyes. I mean, we got all kinds of stuff. You're concerned about this next hurricane. You're concerned about this next hurricane that's coming. What looks like another scenario setting up in the Gulf of Mexico. What's your thoughts?
If we have that, if that high pressure system, right, that's coming in right now, ironically, if it stays, there's not going to be a development of a large hurricane. It will dissipate. It'll dissipate it before it ever gets to chance.
Oh, that's good.
If those high pressure systems leave, though, Pastor Paul,
That's
because
a problem.
high pressure systems are not. They do strange things, right?
Right.
So if they leave, we have too many other low systems, right?
Can I ask a question? Okay, I'm with you.
Really cause some problems.
Low pressure is not good. Let's pray that don't happen. But I'm with you. We got to pray. Let me ask you about the UN. I know we're almost out of time, but the United Nations was a joke. But let me ask you, because they are this pack, this UN pack thing, this global pack. I forgot the name of it now. Where all the whole world agreed to give up their sovereignty if needed. What in the world happened there?
Oh, that's not new. It's not new.
Okay.
It's just it's more like
it's just confirmation.
It's more like a focused definition of what was in the charter in the first place.
Okay.
Because they agreed during extraordinary circumstances, right? That they could actually do that. Now, you and I both know by a biblical anchor what the real deal is, because I can't help but to think of Revelation, right?
Okay.
In Revelation 17, it says the 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet will 1 hour with the beast and give their power over to the beast, right?
Yes.
Because it says God put it in their hearts to give their power over to the beast. So that's so somebody can sit in the background and by proxy take over a nation and then hand their power over to one entity. If things are being set up like that, AI, which has been deployed now, it's highly deployed now, it looks like it's going full implementation in a very short time. It's one of the reasons for the strikes on these docks. AI is because they don't they propose automation to take over the majority of the jobs on these docks.
Yeah.
They had findings there too, because we discussed that on this show.
That's that if the docks on the east coast, basically all the longshoremen, if the company goes to the same system as China, 90% of the jobs will be lost. So what they've done is they've tentatively said to them, okay, you can have your $5 an hour increase in pay for the next 6 years, which is which will get them from 39 to 69 in 6 years, dollars an hour. But they said, then let us work out the rest of the details between now and January 15th. Mike, if the automation is approved, 90% of these guys won't be working.
Yeah, that's why they did that. That's why they did that strike in the first place. And it's a shame, Pastor Paul. It's a shame because these corporations, I hate to say this, but it all starts in Washington. Yeah. All of it does. Yeah. Because if a company is fighting to keep their profits, they have to avoid taxes, right? They want
Right.
they're trying to
Right.
duck and dodge everything. They're not thinking about the people.
No.
If people would reinvest, companies, if they could invest back in the people, and if corporations would not try to, you know, they're just desperately trying to. If they're trying to survive
Yeah.
and they're not thriving, they're going to cut corners everywhere. But if
Sure.
they're surviving and doing well, right, then that's when they start helping out their employees. That's when the
Right.
economy
Right.
is recovers, right? That's when they
Right.
also, instead of beating down their competition, they lift up their competition. But all that needs to be put back in this nation, where a company can build themselves up for the sake of the nation. Right. In other
Right.
words, an employee is an asset for the nation. An
Yes.
employee is a part of the economy for the nation. So if they had a mindset where they could feed that all that energy back into the employees, not fire them, but feed it back into the
Amen.
employees to
Amen.
build them up, man, everything would change. But the problem is, with all these weird tax laws that they have, and these companies have no choice. They need cheaper labor to survive, because if they don't have cheaper labor, they're going out of business. Why? Because of all the
Because of
taxation.
taxes. Because tax.
Right. There you go.
So if we
Because,
can,
so
if
these
it comes
people that
down to
sit
this,
there and say,
when the government says we have to raise taxes and then we're going to fight for the unions, they're basically lying. The truth is, if you cut taxes and quit wasting it, and how much money have we sent to Ukraine? How much money have we sent here, and how much have we sent there? If that money was invested in America, how much have we spent on the 10 million immigrants that have come across the border illegally? If that money was used for the American people, and we could cut taxes and use for the American people, you don't have to lay people off. You don't have to do these kinds of things.
That's right. That's right, which is why they need a brand new agency that will ensure that that companies employ a minimum number of employees.
Amen.
Right?
I like that.
So that they can feed back into the economy, no matter who they are. That would keep foreign countries overseas over there. They wouldn't try to come over here and undercut everything, because they come over here, take our money, and ship it overseas.
Is that what Trump's trying to do with the tariffs in his own way?
Well,
in his best way he knows, or whatever.
I guess it would be a portion of tackling a piece of that problem, but even the tariffs will not solve the issue of redirecting.
It's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid.
Because to feed America, to put your heart back into America, is to put your heart back into the employees. The employees have to be, they got to put a smile on those employees' faces. They got to be able to give them a bonus.
Yep.
And the employees have to be, if the employees are proud of that company for how their stance in this country, everything would change in less than a month if they were to do that. If they were to make sure that they have American employees, right? A minimum amount. That means, no more of this, no more. You can have automation, fine.
Sure.
But you're going to have your employees too, right?
Yep.
Because you got to pay people, actual living people, to continue to feed the economy. That way the entire nation is built up. That's how you build a nation up.
Amen.
You can't do that by automating everything, and
or
then
you can't do
killing
that
your
by
competition just to dodge taxes.
You can't do that by automation of everything, and or outsourcing everything to other countries at slave labor.
They're doing that to avoid taxes.
I know. So so let's cut taxes. Quit. Let's quit using outsourcing. Use America first. Cut taxes, and guess what? You can do a little automation. Everybody wins. That's what I'm hearing you say.
And Pastor, they're trying to convince people. This is what I do not agree with. I do not agree with this democratic ideology. It is a democratic ideology.
Amen.
That you take the wealth of the rich. And give it to the other people. No. You give money to the middle and lower classes through employment.
Thank you.
So you feed resources.
Feed the workers.
And you make sure these corporations can run good. They will pay their employees and give them bonuses and hire just about everybody. You make sure that never stops. And that's how this country would grow. You don't just give money to somebody, right? You offer employment for everybody.
If you cut taxes by 50%,
is that?
My thought was, one day I thought, if they would just cut taxes by 50%, the American economy would explode.
Yeah, well, yep, that's that one part of it. And the other part, Pastor Paul, the reason I say mandate on employees is because you have crooked executives.
Yeah,
right?
you do. You do.
Greedy executives.
You do.
All they want that money to send it overseas to live their lavish lifestyles.
Oh,
Nope,
my
say no more. And so have a
God.
minimum amount of employees that that company would have to keep. And I mean, really work out the numbers. So that way they can't do that. If they want to be greedy, they have to go to another country. It won't work here, right? So you
I
put
like
those things in place, and that ensures the honesty of a company. Then their competition will be friendly competition. Then we'll have the
Amen.
best products in the world because everybody will be helping everybody out. You know, that would be that would be
Mike,
an amazing thing.
You and I just solved the world's problems right
We
there.
did.
We really, really did. Mike, thank you for being here tonight. This was great. I mean, this might be one of the best programs we've had. I mean, because we really have talking about the honest things that's going on. There's bad things happening, but there's good things happening. There's things that are happening that could be fixed. And mostly, Jesus is the only way. He's the answer.
Amen.
And I appreciate you for your faithfulness here on every Thursday night. It's amazing that you come here every Thursday night and you're ready to go every Thursday night, and great wisdom and great information for us. And I appreciate your candor. Thank you.
Pastor Paul, it's an honor. Always an honor, brother.
As you know, I'm going to say the honor is always mine. Thank you.
God bless.
God bless, brother.
All right.